Do you live in a house? Are there trees growing near the house? If so, you might want to stick around for the next few minutes and find out why this is good, this is not good, and this is outright bad. I'm going to get 4 vocabulary words out of the way before we begin. There is excurrent or pointy, decurrent or bushy, codominant, meaning 2 stems rather than 1, and aspect ratio, which is the ratio of one stem to another stem. In an ideal world, trees like cedars and fir should be pointy or excurrent, and trees like maples or arbutus should be bushy or decurrent. But sometimes trees get damaged, like during improper pruning practices or during storms, and a tree that should have only one top ends up with multiple tops. This can be a problem. Let's take a look at a couple of different growth forms here, the excurrent and the decurrent. Here we have an excurrent redwood. Notice that there's a single main stem going up the center of the tree. This is what we want to see. And then over here we have a maple, and the maple goes up and it forks, and then it forks again, and it has a more bushy growth form. Let's look over at this redwood again so we can see what that looks like in comparison. Here's one more quick example of what a Douglas fir or a cedar should look like. Notice that it has one central stem that goes from the bottom to the top of the tree. This is what we want to see, especially if the trees are growing near our house. Here is a codominant Douglas fir. It has 2 central leaders, and it has a high aspect ratio, meaning the ratio of one stem to another is very close. And over here we have another codominant Douglas fir, and it has a very low aspect ratio. Notice that there's one main central leader and then another stem that goes up parallel to the first stem that's much smaller. Generally, the higher aspect ratio, the more danger the tree is in having one stem break off and fall, or the other break off and fall. Here is a codominant cedar where one of the tops has broken off and fallen. Besides aspect ratio, there is one other really important factor that we will look at in determining the risk of a codominant tree for failure. And that is the shape of the union between the 2 tops. If the union is V-shaped, that is a high risk factor. If the union is U-shaped, that is a much lower risk factor. In a tree with a V-shaped union, the stems don't have the room they need to grow without interfering with each other. This leads to a weak attachment point and increased chance of one of the stems breaking off. On the other hand, if the union between the 2 stems is U-shaped, both of the stems can grow in diameter without interfering with each other. Here's a good example of that. If there is a visible line running down the main trunk below the fork, or a ridge running down the main trunk below the fork, this is a really bad sign. We call this a bark inclusion. If you have a tree that has a bark inclusion, you should get it assessed by an arborist. To summarize, if you have a fir or a cedar tree that has more than one top and the union between the tops is V-shaped and there is a line running down the trunk below the V-shape, you should get this checked out by an arborist. You should really get it checked out by an arborist if there is a crack running down the main stem below the union, like in this example. This is the ultimate red flag. There are several other factors that are outside the scope of this video that you may want to discuss with your local arborist, such as self-mass damping, group mass damping, species-specific failure predispositions, and tree geometry. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any tree questions, please let me know in the comments and I will make a video answering your question. Thanks for watching.